has no quarrel with the brute.
Marvel lore doesn't always have its heroes winning in the end of a hard-fought battle. Sometimes evil overcomes the good, and that's what makes some of Marvel's villains so dynamic. Having the villain win every now and then spices up character arcs, and Marvel does that quite a bit. Here are 18 Marvel villains who actually achieve their goals. You can't expect us to make a video about Marvel villains winning and not mention Thanos, right? Sure, he was defeated in Endgame to end the Infinity Saga, but he did achieve his goal of wiping out half of the world's population in Infinity War. This is one of the deadliest wins by a villain in the MCU, and it certainly had its lasting effects. Towards the beginning of Phase 4, the Flag Smashers and Falcon and the Winter Soldier want to go back to the way things were during the blip because everyone was treated as equals. There was also that mug and vandalism in Hawkeye that said, Thanos was right, indicating that despite being gone, Thanos is still affecting people from his snap. It's pretty clear that some people found the positives in the outcome of the blip, but those who were gone for 5 years certainly don't agree with that. Regardless, Thanos caught this W, and it is definitely one that will be remembered for a long time. Thor should have gone for the head. Mysterio, though another villain that has passed, won against Spider-Man in Far From Home. He was able to trick Peter into giving him the Edith glasses that controlled weaponized drones created by Tony Stark, and used them to make him appear as a superhero. In my book, that's 1 point Mysterio and 0 point Spider-Man. Flash forward to later on, and Spider-Man is able to use his Tingle, Spidey sense, to defeat Mysterio and take out the drones. Sure, part of London was destroyed, but that's 1 point for Spider-Man right there. A Marvel battle can't end in a draw, so how does Mysterio take the lead? Well, remember that post-credit scene in the movie? Mysterio releases footage exposing Spider-Man's real identity, which then leads to the events of No Way Home, which then leads to everyone forgetting Peter and him losing Aunt May. Mysterio caused a domino effect that would leave Spider-Man with absolutely nothing at the end of his third movie. A brilliant villain in the MCU. It's a shame we probably won't see him again, but brilliant nonetheless. Let's talk about He Who Remains, aka Kang the Conqueror. In the Loki Season 1 finale, we are introduced to He Who Remains, the man who is in charge of the time stream. Loki and Sylvie finally break into the Citadel and confront the man of many names. While Sylvie did end up stabbing him and ending his life, He Who Remains ended up winning that fight. By killing He Who Remains, Sylvie unleashed the multiverse, allowing all the Kang variants to appear throughout time once again. We can see it when Loki returns to the TVA and sees a huge statue of a Kang variant, who is now the leader of the TVA. This will most likely lead to other Kang variants appearing in the future of the MCU. So sure, He Who Remains doesn't remain so much anymore, but it was a sacrifice for the greater evil of things. Great job, Sylvie. One of my favorite MCU movies, Captain America Civil War, has Zemo as its main villain, and man is he an evil genius. Even when he was locked up in a high security prison, he was able to tear the Avengers apart into Team Cap and Team Iron Man. Where are all my Team Cap friends at? Just me? Okay. Anyway, Zemo bombed the signing of the Sokovia Accords and blamed it on the Winter Soldier. This caused Captain America to go after Bucky and Iron Man to form a team to stop them. Yes, Zemo was caught by T'Challa in the end, but the impact of his scheme was so grand that the fracture created between the Avengers lasted into Infinity War, which ultimately helped Thanos get his win. So in a way, I guess you can say Zemo played a major role in causing the blip? This man is too good. He's even got the dance moves to prove it. Another villain that is no longer with us, Killmonger, got his win in Black Panther. I know it seems like all the villains I talk about end up dying in some shape or form, but they get their win, I promise. Killmonger's goal was to help people of African descent through the power of vibranium. Since Wakanda is the only known location at the time to have vibranium, he's able to get in and challenge T'Challa for the throne. He ends up defeating T'Challa and gains power in order to open up Wakanda's borders to the world. Again, Killmonger dies, but he was able to make T'Challa realize that Wakanda should use its resources to help others around the world, and ends up opening its borders in the end. Killmonger had a positive goal in mind, he just didn't go about it the right way. It's all about perspective, people. Do you guys remember that huge fire demon in Thor Ragnarok? That's Surtur, and while he wasn't the main villain of the film, he accomplished his goal in the end. The heroes realized that Hela, Thor and Loki's sister, was drawing power from Asgard. In order to weaken her, Asgard basically had to be destroyed. Thor makes Loki resurrect Surtur so that the demon can fulfill its prophecy of destroying Asgard. He does so, even though the people of Asgard evacuated safely in time onto a huge ship. Well, that ship was destroyed by Thanos, and I'm assuming he took the lives of many Asgardians in the process. So Surtur truly did get his win in the end. Good for him! Hopefully he doesn't come back to destroy New Asgard. Ah yes, Iron Man 2 with the introduction of Ivan Vanko. He had a deep hatred for Tony Stark and wanted to show the world that Iron Man wasn't invincible in his suit of armor. He was able to join forces with Justin Hammer, a rival of Stark, in order to carry out his personal goal. He built drones for Hammer, which were ultimately a distraction so that he could take on Iron Man when he was already drained. No, Ivan didn't defeat Iron Man, but he proved to the world that Iron Man isn't the protective shield of armor around the world that he posed to be. A line by Vision in Captain America Civil War states Ivan's plan perfectly.
Our very strength invites challenge. Challenge incites conflict. Conflict breeds catastrophe.
Ivan saw Tony's strength and wanted to challenge it. He did, and it was a huge blow for Iron Man in the end despite defeating Vanko. Not the greatest villain in the MCU, but he definitely made an impact on RDJ's character. In the Kraven's Last Hunt storyline in Marvel Comics, Kraven does take down Spider-Man and buries him alive. Talk about being brutal. He then impersonates Spider-Man for about 2 weeks, taking down criminals in vicious ways. Spider-Man was able to get out of his own grave, but before he could get his revenge on the Hunter, Kraven took his own life, refusing to give the webhead his chance to take him down. Kraven went down on his own terms and left on a win, I guess. This is truly one of Spider-Man's darkest moments in Marvel Comics. Hail Hydra! I'm kidding. But in this case, Hydra did pull out a win from under S.H.I.E.L.D. Or should I say, from within S.H.I.E.L.D. In Captain America the Winter Soldier, S.H.I.E.L.D. is shown to be infiltrated by members of Hydra, and they are trying to use its helicarriers to take out targets. Obviously, taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. is a win in itself, but Hydra was also able to take out members of the organization throughout the film. Despite being defeated in the end, the aftermath of Hydra's scheme caused S.H.I.E.L.D. to be disbanded. Now the organization's sword is in play in the MCU because of that, so hopefully Hydra doesn't make a reappearance in that department. Unless it leads to another sick elevator fight between Captain America and Hydra members, then Hydra can try again if they please. I apologize in advance for mentioning this film, but I have to. In Thor the Dark World, Loki does get a win while in his villain era. Loki and Thor must defeat the Dark Elves to stop them from taking over the 9 realms. The God of Mischief fakes his death with his powers of illusion and duplication, and disguises himself as his father, Odin, in order to rule Asgard. Loki makes the people of Asgard believe that he died a hero, and even has a statue made of himself to embrace his lie. He gets his dream of being king of Asgard for a little while, until Thor comes back in Thor Ragnarok and outs his identity to the kingdom. Also, Loki is low-key on track to becoming, dare I say it, a hero? His series shows that he's kind of having a change of heart in life. Give this man 2 wins. He's earned it. In the comics, Norman Osborn gets a massive win. He becomes in charge of the Thunderbolts who are operating under S.H.I.E.L.D. and ends up taking the final blow against the Skrull Queen, which leads to the end of the Skrull invasion. The government thought that Iron Man failed them, and that Osborn was a hero, so they put him in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Superhero Initiative. He reformed S.H.I.E.L.D. into Hammer and even took on the persona of Iron Patriot. He was able to turn people against popular heroes until the president arrested him for acts of treason and had Hammer disbanded. While he didn't stay in power, this is an incredible undertaking made by Osborn in the comics. Maybe he should stick to being the Green Goblin though moving forward. What would I know though? I myself am nothing like a scientist.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
Ant-Man and the Wasp introduced Ava, aka Ghost, a woman who was in trouble of phasing into nothing if she didn't get the right help. While she is perceived as one of the villains in this Marvel project, Ghost only wanted to fix her problem of phasing in and out. When the team rescues the original Wasp from the quantum realm, she uses her powers to stabilize Ghost in the meantime. Ant-Man even goes back into the quantum realm to get more quantum energy so they could help Ava heal. Maybe instead of randomly attacking the Pyms and Scott Lang at first, Ghost could have just asked for help in a nice way. It's like I said earlier, it's all about perspective. Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, is a major Marvel villain in both the comics and the MCU. To be honest, I feel like this guy is constantly winning. Obviously, I won't be so generic, so I'll give you some specifics. In the Daredevil series that started on Netflix, Wilson Fisk constantly has people in his back pockets. Whether it be fellow drug lords or the FBI, there's no telling who is working for Fisk. When he's put on house arrest in Season 3, Fisk is able to turn some of the FBI agents into his minions and make his house arrest feel more like a home than a prison cell. One of the agents happens to turn into the Daredevil doppelganger that goes on to harass innocent civilians. Fisk also creates a secret lair that allows him to see surveillance of Hell's Kitchen. That, and he also gets to have his significant other visit him constantly while on house arrest. If there is ever a scenario where I am on house arrest, I hope it's similar to Fisk's experience instead of Scott Lang's in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I just think it would be cool to have a secret lair. Regardless, Fisk is a villain that constantly has the upper hand against his foes, which makes him a huge candidate on this list. Red Skull is an interesting example on this list, but there's a reason I put him on it. I know he failed to use the power of the Tesseract in the first Captain America movie, but his demise ultimately led to his win later on in the MCU. In Infinity War, Red Skull appears on Vormir as the caretaker of the Soul Stone when Thanos comes to obtain it. It's shown that Red Skull has knowledge of those who come seeking the Soul Stone, as he knew quite a bit about Thanos, Gamora, Hawkeye, and Black Widow. He says that it's his curse to know all who travel to Vormir, but I think of that as a gift rather than a curse. Sure, Red Skull is trapped on Vormir and is alone until someone comes for the stone, but he gets to be the guard of one of the Infinity Stones. In a way, he got his wish of having space-like powers and being in possession of an Infinity Stone. To some of you, this may be a stretch as a win for the character, but I think Red Skull needs this to count as a win. I mean, have you seen his face? Poor guy. Magneto is a one-of-a-kind villain in Marvel, and I specifically want to talk about his appearance in X-Men First Class. Magneto is able to achieve his goal of taking out Sebastian Shaw, the mutant who can absorb any energy mass, which is exactly what Xavier didn't want him to do. This leads to the two friends arguing, which sadly ends up with Xavier being shot in the back, making him paralyzed. Magneto, while saddened by his friend's injury, leaves to make the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. This sparks the feud between him and Xavier, which sets the future events of the X-Men. By taking out Sebastian and leaving Xavier critically injured, Magneto becomes the main antagonist and embarks on his journey of evil. His win is more of a brutal one as he killed Kevin Bacon's character by forcing a coin through his head. But a win is a win, right? Please forgive me if I get emotional talking about this upcoming villain. The Green Goblin in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a rather interesting take on the villain. Though the movie was a little all over the place with the plot, the Green Goblin pushed Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker to his limits. After defeating Electro at the power grid, Spider-Man and Gwen are attacked by the Green Goblin. He is able to abduct Gwen and take her to an abandoned clock tower, where he ends up fighting Spider-Man at. The battle leads to Gwen falling to her death, which absolutely broke my heart. I mean Peter's heart. Sorry, I'm okay. Though the Green Goblin is defeated, his plan actually succeeded in tearing apart Spider-Man's life and putting him down a dark path. Gosh, it feels like it was just yesterday when I saw that scene in the movie theater. I was not okay. I hate to say it, but the Green Goblin got the win in this one. A cruel win, but a win nonetheless. Speaking of Spider-Man villains, let's talk about Sandman. I know, he was a mediocre villain at best, but he really did win in the end of the Raimi trilogy. Sandman took the life of crime in order to help get his daughter medical treatment. In the process, he falls into some pit in a government compound and turns into the Sandman. His goal didn't change after his transformation, but it certainly didn't help his image to be seen as a huge monster. Sandman isn't necessarily a true villain, but he doesn't go after his goal in a respectful way. At the end of the movie, Sandman tells Spider-Man that all he wanted to do was help his daughter. The two share a heartwarming moment, and then Sandman flies away in a puff of sand. He doesn't die, and he isn't taken into custody, so he's able to continue finding ways to help his daughter. It's a really admirable win for the villain. I really hope he was able to achieve his goal. This final example is probably one of my favorite ones on the list. Emil Blonsky is a guinea pig for the government at the beginning of his MCU debut, and turns into the bad guy despite being very similar to the Hulk. In She-Hulk, Emil Blonsky is put on parole thanks to Jennifer Walters, as he is trying to prove to the world that he doesn't want the Abomination to take over his personality. He shows that he's into finding inner peace and helping other ex-supervillains transform into morally balanced individuals. He even has his own retreat where he hosts therapy sessions and public speaking events. He does end up breaking his parole by turning into the Abomination in the series finale, but he proved to Jennifer that he really has had a change of heart and he isn't that much of a bad guy. Another heartwarming win for an ex-villain? I say we still count it. To be fair, he escaped prison twice with the help of Wong, who is now the Sorcerer Supreme of the MCU. Emil having it in with Wong automatically sets him up for a win in my book. Give him that dub! Villains winning in Marvel doesn't always mean they took over the world or destroyed a hero. Sometimes it's more of a bittersweet ending for them. It's okay to look at the glass half full, guys. Some villains deserve second chances. Right?